Okay, I am sorry, I apologize, but I am not going to be present on Wednesday when we would normally do our kind of walkthrough of the material in order to try to make sure that you are ready for our test on Thursday. What I want to go ahead and do, since I'm not going to be in the classroom on Wednesday, is go ahead and do that for you right now, which will hopefully take about 5 minutes. I've got the 2 packets here with me. I'm going to walk through the information, highlight the most important stuff for you so that you know where you should be focused in order to study for Thursday's test. So I'm looking at the Module 12 packet here, and the first place that I have highlighted right at the top here, section titled The Roots of Modern Science. The most knowledge in the Middle Ages comes from the Bible or Greek and Roman sources. And so be familiar with that prior to the scientific revolution, where people are getting their knowledge from. And then down at the bottom of the page, conflict with the church. This is where we have Galileo and his run-in with the Pope. Please be familiar with the sequence of events there for how that went down. Flipping the page, towards the top there, looking at Newton explains the law of gravity. And the very bottom of that section there, you have the term deism show up. Newton's belief that God was a clockmaker, setting things in motion, but then otherwise kind of stands back after that. The idea of deism. Newton and a number of other of his contemporaries all had a similar view there, that there was a God, but a slightly different understanding of that God than the Catholic Church held at the time. All right, jumping down to the very, very bottom, actually on the next page, but the heading is on the bottom there, for Locke's natural rights. So we flip the page, and particularly the last bullet point there stresses that the people have the right to overthrow an unjust government. There will be a test question wanting you to know who it was that held that idea, that you could overthrow an unjust government. And you want to know that that was Locke. On that same page now, Montesquieu and the separation of power. That's what you need to know. Please associate the concept of separation of power with Montesquieu. Jumping down, same page under lesson 3, a world of ideas. Jumping down to this section, Paris becomes the center of the Enlightenment. You have lots of the great thinkers throughout Europe coming to Paris in order to participate in the Enlightenment. Flipping the page, was also not just for thinkers, but for a number of other types of artists as well. In particular, you have Beethoven and a number of other composers who were emerging during this time period. So be familiar with that. So the changes in music and literature towards the top of that page. Beethoven and his other composers. Know about that. That's it from that page. Flipping the page. Very, very bottom, the influence of the Enlightenment down here. In particular, that middle bullet point, the Declaration of Independence was justifying colonial rebellion. The question is going to be, what was the purpose of the Declaration of Independence? And they were listing out all their grievances that they had with King George. So they were justifying the fact that they were getting ready to start a revolution. All right, flipping the page. So we're now on the very back of that packet. And at the very bottom of it, you have the Bill of Rights. Some feared that there would be too much national power, and so there needed to be something officially on paper protecting the rights of the people. And so that's what was added to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution in order to protect the people. That was its purpose. All right, moving on to your Module 13 packet with the French Revolution and Napoleon. Very top there, be familiar with the 3 estates that were the old regime, the first estate being the clergy, second estate the nobles, and the third estate everyone else, in particular the peasants and poor workers. Please, middle of the page there, where it talks about economic troubles, please highlight King Louis and his wife Marie Antoinette being known for their extravagance. That's going to show up. Flipping the page. The rights of man, under the beginning of lesson 2 there, under the Assembly Reforms France, the section called the Rights of Man. And I have that box highlighted. In particular, there's going to be a question related to that slogan of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Be familiar with the slogan. Flipping the page. The Jacobins take control. In particular, at the top of that page, we want you to know what the fate of King Louis the 13th or the 16th was. Sorry, we've had a lot of Louis. Know what his fate was. Very, very bottom of that, we have the title, but not the information that goes with it. The coup d'etat for Napoleon. So that's the title. We flip the page and see that what it was Napoleon carrying out his kind of takeover of France, seizing power in France. Coup d'etat. Be familiar with that term. That's it for that page. So we're flipping the page now, and we got several off of this page here. It says Peninsular War at the top. I have a star next to Spanish fight as guerrillas, so guerrilla warfare taking place here. The idea of small groups that attack and then disappear. In the next section, the invasion of Russia. The third bullet point there, you have the Russians using a scorched earth approach, which meant destroying crops and livestock. This was ultimately a tactic within warfare that allowed them to help fend off Napoleon's marches through Russia, to help keep him away. Scorched earth. All right, moving down under lesson 4, towards the bottom here, we have Clemens von Metternich. His plan that's happening here, European powers came together to try to figure out what happens now that Napoleon is defeated, and Clemens von Metternich was a big part of coming up with this plan, the purpose of which was so that no country would be a threat to other countries, kind of establishing a balance of power throughout the region, as opposed to, wasn't just trying to make himself the most powerful person now that Napoleon was gone or that sort of thing, but truly trying to let each nation have its kind of fair share of the power without these countries all trying to take each other over. A very balanced plan. And flipping the page to the very back, this plan, under legitimacy here, I've got this section highlighted, but in particular, the very last point. There's a true-false question on the test related to this bullet point that says, European nations agreed to preserve peace, which lasted almost 40 years. So once they had ousted Napoleon and met at Vienna, they were able to achieve some level of peace that would be ongoing. Now, within some of these countries, there would be some forms of revolution starting to happen after the people got wind of what had happened in France and were interested in maybe their own revolutions. But as far as amongst the nations themselves go, there was a relative peace for about 40 years. All right, there you have it. The rest of your time today should be spent either going through this packet, making sure that you are familiar with that highlighted most important information, or you may prioritize things for another class if you have other things to work on. But please use the time wisely. Please don't just sit there and waste it away. I will see you tomorrow for your test. Peace.